There's a lot of things that we love about the classic era and the hit era of Thomas and Friends. But I think we can all agree the thing that we love the most about seasons 1 to 12 is the model making work. There's no denying that the Thomas and Friends team were experts on their craft and only got better as time went on, at least in the classic era. But there were some stumbles along the way. And something I've not really seen anybody do is rank the model making work of Thomas and Friends from seasons 1 to 12. So that's what I'm going to be doing. These are all my own personal opinions. Your list would probably be different than mine, and it's one thing that makes the Thomas fandom so unique. Let me know in the comments how you would rank the model seasons of Thomas and Friends. All I ask is that you be respectful, and above all, enjoy the video. Okay, let's dive in. Number 12, Season 8. To me, Season 8 just felt like it just had to go through the motions. It was a soft reboot, everything was scaled down, they were trying to just go with the flow and see what landed. And a lot of the model making work seemed to take a back seat. I just thought it was quite bland by the numbers, and you just got through it. Number 11, Season 10. It just seemed like there was no variety with this season. The amount of times you could look at an episode and see the same shots of the same bits of track, the same bits of land over and over and over again. This season it felt like it was quantity in the terms of the amount of episodes over the quality of episodes being produced. And after a while, you just get bored of the same old, same old. Had some new engines to look at, but nothing else. Number 10, Season 11. A lot of people slate Season 11 for that kind of yellow tinge that they had throughout the entire season. But you know what? At least they tried something different. Yes, they may not have stuck the landing, but you've got to admire the fact that they took a chance. Because everything at this point just felt samey. I don't know if it was maybe getting a bit of Stockholm syndrome when going into season 11 thinking, yeah, I'm in for it now, I'm just going to enjoy what's presented, or if they genuinely did try and step up their game. But I do like season 11. It's one of my favourite hit era seasons, and at least it had some guts to try a couple of different things. Number 9, Season 9. We go from Season 8, where it's very run-of-the-mill, by the numbers, focus on a specific amount of locations and a core cast of characters, to Season 9, where they decide they are just going to take every chance they can get. They introduced the narrow gauge engines, questionable personality choices aside, but in doing so, they open the world of Sodor back up again. We get some new engines introduced as well, which is always a good thing, and they seem to get rid of those tracking shots that they had in Season 8 as well. I personally didn't mind them, but I can understand why people wouldn't have liked them. So they go back to type with what does work, and they strip away what didn't work. It showed a bit of progress and a bit of evolution in their style. I also include calling all engines as part of Season 9, because there was the movie and then it went straight into Season 9 off the back of it. And you can't deny that the model making work in that film was really good. In particular, the suspension bridge collapsing. That was some quality model making work right there. Number 8, Season 12. Again, I include The Great Discovery as the lead into Season 12, because they really just decided we're going to go balls to the wall, see what sticks, and just bring as many characters back as we could. We also got the discovery of a new location in Great Waterton, which they didn't forget about going into Season 12. They continued to expand on it, which was one thing I liked about Season 12. Now, a lot of people think this hybrid CGI model era was, quite frankly, terrifying. But while the initial shock is there, it was a bold move for a show that could have easily just rested on its laurels for the last season. Well, they decided to try something new, push the boundaries, something that hadn't really been done in media at that point in time. And I think they could have done better with it if they'd carried on with this hybrid style. But it turned out just to be a one and done. And I think that's why it goes higher on the list. Because no matter what you think of Season 12, you remember it. For good, for bad, or any bits in between. Number 7, Season 6. This is the reason why people think that the classic era actually stops at Season 5 and we have a separate Ghislaine era between Season 6 and 7. Because there was such a divide between the quality of Seasons 5 and 6. After Thomas and the Magic Railroad, it seemed like they just turned the show into basic kiddie show. All the sets seemed to lose their realism and their vibrancy. The engines didn't look like real engines anymore, but more like what they were, model props. That's why it's lower down in the list for me. Number 6, Season 7. I like that they recognised some of the mistakes that they'd made in season 6 and tried to bring back a bit of form, knowing that this was going to be the last season of this era of Thomas and Friends. Again, they didn't skimp on their laurels. They introduced new locations, new engines, expanded on the world of Sodor, and the model making work itself was really, really strong. Some of the winter effects had been a bit of a downgrade, but that's the only thing I could really fault on it. It's the last season where we had David Mitton in the director's chair, and despite all the personal issues that he was going through at the time, he still put out a superior product than most directors could do when they're at 100%. Number 5, Season 2. Bet you're surprised at that one, because I am a Season 2 baby. Season 2 is my nostalgia bait season. It doesn't change. I do love the fact that they expanded the world of Sodor, gave it more of a grimy industrial feel. The panning shots that they would use so we could see more of the engines and the locations that they were involved in was great. The model making work really went up a scale compared to Season 1. But it's not blind from its issues, guys. We all know the infamous eyebrow issues with the models in Season 2. Sometimes they had eyebrows, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they had teeth, sometimes they didn't. It did feel a bit more that they were in such a rush to bring the style of the industrial, gritty, workman-like settings that they seemed to forget that the model engines were what everybody was really going to be focusing on front and centre. I still love Season 2. I will always love Season 2. And these goofs are more something that I laugh about now rather than going, oh my god, how did they miss that? Number 4, Season 1. This is a beautiful, insular season of Thomas and Friends. You can watch this from start to finish and not need to worry about watching anything else. They do look like paintings come to life. The model making work is excellent. The greenery, the changing of the seasons, showing what they can do with winter effects. Everything just hit a home run. So I've marked it down. It's because of the product of its time. When Thomas and Friends started getting restored and remastered, everything literally expanded. So you could see parts of the set that you weren't meant to see back in the 80s. And I know that's a bit of a dick move for me to mark that down. But it does take you out of the experience now when you watch it in modern times. It didn't back then because everything was so beautiful. But it's just those little details that just make me really sad because it does feel like it taints an otherwise excellent season. Number 3, Season 3. I've said a lot about Season 3 in terms of stories and how they're portrayed, but you cannot deny that every aspect of the visual experience of Thomas and Friends in this season was a huge step up. There had been 5 years between Seasons 2 and Season 3, and a lot had changed. Specifically, David Mitton and Robert Cardona had went to work on tugs. So David Mitton learned a lot about water effects and how to use model boats and how to bring that into the Sodor world, which meant they had even more scope to play with. They could use water effects, rain effects, which meant they could experiment with different types of weather, such as stormy days. The visuals were a massive upgrade. Everything just seemed to be more colourful. It looked beautiful. So in terms of the model making work, that's why Season 3 is as high as it is. It showed the potential of where Thomas and Friends was going to go into their golden age. Number 2, Season 5. This was the cinematic season. The season where you looked at it and thought, my god, I'm watching a mini movie every 4.5 minutes. They did not skimp on any of the lessons that they had learned over the 4 seasons, and they utilised every single part of it. This is a season that you could show just a normie, and they would appreciate the model work. They would appreciate how well everything's done, from the camera work, to the lighting, to the cinematography, to the music. And the model making work and the engines themselves play a huge part in that. And speaking of huge, the engines look feckin' massive because of the low camera angles that they've now been able to figure out. They don't look like toys. They look like real, heavy-duty, industrial steam engines. Massive behemoths. That's all down to how they put this season together. And the only flaw I could think of, which is why I didn't get the number 1 spot, is the transition from the original narrow gauge models to the new narrow gauge models. It's so jarring. Once you notice it, you can't unnotice it. It just takes you right out of the experience and makes you realise that you are just watching a kid's show again. And the number 1 season of Thomas and Friends, Season 4. Oh my god, what an amazing visual masterclass. If you are into model making, or you want to become a model maker or aspire to model making, watch Season 4. The range and the scope is beautiful. How they go from the narrow gauge engine side, which is all hills, valleys, countryside, to the standard gauge side, which has a mix of the countryside and the industrial aspects. And then bringing those two worlds together when they share screen time, a lot of people don't realise how difficult that was to do. It's something we appreciate now and realise that with the benefits of technology, you could have stories with narrow gauge engines and standard gauge engines. But this was fucking impossible to do back in the 90s. And they pulled it off spectacularly. I honestly couldn't find any faults with the model making in season 4. I know there's the whole issue with the narrow gauge engines having the little cars behind them, which actually had their motors in them to run the engines, but that's a small price to pay for what we got in the end. Those engines were a git to work with, but the quality shines through. It has the comfort and quality of season 1. It has the new techniques that they learned in season 3. It harkens back to some of the old techniques that they learned in model making work that they'd done in season 2. And it sets you up for what is going to come in season 5. This is true golden era Thomas from a visual perspective, from a model making perspective, from the engine's perspective, from the viewer's perspective. It is fantastic. And that is my ranking list, everybody. I know I didn't put Jack and the Sodor Construction Company in, but I didn't know whether to lump it in with season 6 or season 7. Because of the airing order, I wasn't too sure. But let me know in the comments how you would rank the model era of Thomas and Friends in terms of visuals and set design. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep on chugging.